That's too high. That'll do. Yeah. Happy summer. Happy July. Happy America's 250th birthday in a couple of days. And I want to celebrate America, generally speaking, but certainly not in the traditional way that we tend to celebrate her, by celebrating things and values that don't really align with mine. So I decided that this July, I am going to read Black. I'm going to read by Black authors, Black stories, Black historical fiction, Black nonfiction, Black romance. Like, we're getting Black up in here this July. Today we're going to go over my TBR, except probably I won't be reading all of these books because I think I have like 15 on this list, but it will be like a to be considered. How about that? A to be thought about reading this month, in the hopes that I will be reading them this month. Let's get started with the book that I'm actually reading right now. We'll do romance first. How about that? So I'm currently reading The Art of Loving You by Natasha Bishop. This is actually in the same like world that Only for the Weak was in, which I loved. I think that book came out like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was a great book, and I really loved the way that it was written. I really loved the story. This one, not so much. I love the concept. It's like a second chance romance following 2 of the characters from Only for the Weak. They are Danny and Micah. Micah's an artist, he's a painter. Danny is like an influencer, she was a model. And basically they come together after kind of their mentor, Tanya, passes away, and she has this like scavenger hunt mission for them to go on to kind of learn more about her life and really themselves through it. And I love the premise, I just think it's not executed super well. But this is not a review video. This is a TBR video. So I will finish this. I am like 3/4 of the way through, so we're gonna power through it, and I will let you know my thoughts in a future video where we do reviews. Okay, next up, my girl Kennedy Ryan. I love Her Before I Let Go. I think it's the Skyline series. Those 3 books, love them. Also read Kingmaker and really loved that one too. So I was like, I think it's time for me to pick up another Kennedy Ryan book. This is, I think, basketball? Yes. August is going to be in the NBA draft. Iris is at a sports bar and meets them. They go their separate ways. But then they find their way back together. Oh, another second chance. Wow, I'm just in a second chance mood. I've heard really great things about this particular series. So I'm really excited. I do love a sports romance when it's done really well. And Kennedy Ryan does pretty much everything well. So I'm excited about this one. And then the last romance that I have is actually one that has been on my list for a while. I'm pretty sure I've actually purchased this book, sold this book to Half Price Books, and now here I am purchasing it again from Half Price Books, which is just my MO, and I like really need to get it together and like not purchase books until I'm ready to read them, but that's a story for another video. So this one is The Air He Breathes by Brittany Cherry. This isn't another second chance, is it? No. This is about Tristan Cole, who apparently is a very cold, cruel, damaged, broken man. And homegirl is going to get with him. They're going to fall in love. We're both empty. We were both looking for something else, something more. We both wanted to put together the shattered pieces of our yesterdays, so perhaps we could finally remember how to breathe. 2 broken people falling in love. We love that, because aren't we all just a little bit broken? All right, romance. 3 romance. Those are the romances on the list. Let's do general fiction next. I've got 2 general fiction, and both actually are about kind of like Black people in the workplace, which I thought was really interesting, because I myself am a Black person in the workplace, and sometimes, y'all, it really be rough out there. So first is Black Buck by Mateo Ascaripour. This one is about Darren, who is like a salesperson in this kind of like fast-paced startup, and he's the only Black person in the company, and he basically like creates this alter ego called Buck in this kind of like salesman world, and he basically transforms into Buck. So it's kind of like this like satire, like commentary on code switching, which is the like practice that a lot of Black people and people who are minorities in any way kind of do when they enter in a space that is not built for them, that is not full of people like them, and it's kind of how we tweak and change parts of our culture and personality to better fit into an environment. And sometimes that is a necessary thing, and sometimes it is really, really demoralizing. So it'll be very interesting to kind of read this and see about his like alter ego Buck. And then the other one is called The Other Black Girl. This is another one that has been on my radar for so long, and I swear I checked it out from the library and just have never read it. This one is an honor book actually from the library. I went to a new library, Campbell County. I live in Hamilton County, which is in Cincinnati, and Campbell County is in Kentucky, and Cincinnati is right on the border of Kentucky. You just cross over the Ohio River and you're in Kentucky. So we have a like not exchange program, but like reciprocal relationship with Campbell County, where if you have a Hamilton County library card, you can also get a Campbell County. I think we do it with a couple other counties as well. So all that to say, I went to a new library system. They had honor books. I got this one. So The Other Black Girl is another workplace story. So it is about two young Black women who work in New York City in book publishing. And Nella is the first one. She's originally the only Black girl. And then Hazel comes, and apparently there's like some semi-threatening messages left. It says, "Leave Wagner now." Wagner is the place that they work. So interesting. Like, is it threatening? Is it like a warning? Is it hostility? What is it? So a little bit of like a thriller, kind of psychological thriller maybe, like tension. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Also, look at homegirl. She's fire. That's her personality. I want that type of like badassery. I'm gonna work on that this July. Let's do historical fiction next. And I actually have a really fun mix of historical fiction. First two that I'll talk about, because the other three are actually in a series that I'm really excited to reread and then continue reading. So first is Homecoming. First is Homecoming by Yaa Gyasi. This one is one, again, on my radar for so long. I also swear I've bought this, sold this, and bought this again. I'm not going there. But this one is about two half-sisters, actually, in Ghana in the 18th century, and they end up leading two completely very different lives. One is basically sold into slavery. The other married to an Englishman and leads a life of comfort in the palatial rooms of the Cape Coast Castle. So it's very interesting to see how like two sisters' stories kind of like diverge and how their lives are, I'm assuming, very different, but also like what similarities are there. Like, very interesting. So this one, and then we've got The American Queen by Vanessa Miller. Now this one I did not realize is actually Christian fiction. I am not a Christian. I am agnostic. You didn't really need to know that, but just know going into this that I will probably have very different perceptions of this because it is a Christian fiction as reading it as a non-Christian. Okay, this one is about a woman who was enslaved in a plantation. Her name is Luella, and she's just full of hate, like hate for everyone, hate that she was enslaved, hate for the people who enslaved her, like just hate for this kind of whole world. But then eventually they leave the plantation. I'm not sure if, I mean, it seems like this is in 1869, so like after slavery ended, but I don't know. I don't know why they're still on the plantation. I'll let you know when I find out. But anyway, they leave the plantation and they basically start their own kingdom called Kingdom of the Happy Land, and her and her husband become the king and queen. And they share their message of joy and goodness and fight for the freedom and dignity of all. So I thought this was an interesting, like, almost fantasy, but like based in historical events book. So excited about that one. And then the other historical fictions, just wait, are actually part of a series that I loved growing up as a kid. The first one is called Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, and it is technically, I think, like a children's or teen, like a YA book, but it is award-winning, like Newbery Medal. It is just so good. This is one of the books that I read that just like made me know that I loved reading as a kid. So I'm really excited to go back to reading this. This is basically about a Black family, and I think, is this one the Depression era? I think so. I think it's like Depression era South in America. So I'm really excited to read this one. The second one that I'll be reading from that series is called Let the Circle Be Unbroken, which is a follow-up story with the same family. It was also written in like the 70s or 80s, I think. And again, another one of my favorites. This one I could not find a physical copy of anywhere. So I will be reading this one on my e-reader. I got a copy from Libby. And then the last that I'll be reading from the series is actually the 10th in the series. This one came out most recently. It is called All the Days Past, All the Days to Come. And it basically follows like Cassie Logan, who we first met when she was 8. Hey. And now we see her as a young woman moving from Toledo to California to Colorado, and kind of how she just grows up through the 60s. And it's just I'm so excited to be back into this world. I like had no idea that the series even continued. So this one's a thickums. It is technically YA, so the print is a little bit bigger than typical, but this is like over 400 pages, almost 500. Holy. So I'm really excited to be able to dive back into that world. Okay, also these are both orange. Isn't that just adorable? God, I'm really easily like pleased to see this. Next, fantasy. I've got 2 fantasies that we'll be reading. Let's start with I, Medusa by Ayana Gray. This one is a Medusa retelling, and I honestly picked it up because my sister's name is Ayana. And this Ayana spells it the same way that my sister Ayana spells it, with 1 N. A lot of Ayana spell it with 2 N's. So honestly, that's why I picked this one up. I'm not like super into retellings or mythology or Medusa in particular, but I have read some reviews of this book, and I love that you kind of get to see and learn about Medusa before she was Medusa. And then it talks basically about how her locks were transformed into snakes as a punishment for a crime she did not commit, and kind of how she embraces a new identity as not being a victim but a vigilante. And so I just think that that's kind of like a beautiful way to utilize rage and heartbreak to kind of propel this story. And I think there's a lot of parallels between the Black experience and what I expect to get from I, Medusa. So excited about that one. Then I'm going to read another Octavia Butler. I'm going to do Kindred. I had been recommended Kindred quite a few times, and honestly, like, I struggle to read about slavery in particular, which is very interesting because I have quite a few books on my list that cover the topic of slavery, but I just know that it's one of those things that I really struggle to read about. It's really hard to read about your people and your ancestors who were so horribly mistreated, but I feel like I'm in the right mindset and mood to do that this month, so I'm going to tackle Kindred. I recently finished Parable of the Sower and really loved it. Like, the whole concept of change and how we can manage change and that God is change, but that we also influence God, was fascinating to me. So I felt ready to pick up Kindred because I just wasn't ready to leave the world of Octavia Butler. This one is basically about a woman who named Dana, who vanishes from her home when she's 26 and then reemerges in the antebellum South. And she is, interesting. I'm assuming that she is a slave in this, but she also has to protect the son in a slave-owning whoa, in a slave-owning plantation family and ensure that he may live into young adulthood. So that's very interesting. A modern-day Black woman who experiences and accepts the savagery of her own slavery to pull her further away from her autonomy and her return to the present. So that's kind of fascinating. I'm really excited to delve back into Octavia Butler's world. And it also brings me to the next book that I'm hoping to read this month. It is actually a nonfiction book, and it is Emergent Strategy. This is by Adrienne Marie Brown. The kind of subtitle is Shaping Change, Changing Worlds. And this is something that actually one of my Instagram friends recommended to me, Eric, shout out to you if you're watching this. And they said that if I really liked Parable of the Sower and kind of that world and the concept of change and us being able to like almost manipulate and influence change and kind of the concept of God within that, that this would be a good book for me to read. So it basically explores the concepts that Octavia Butler talks about in Parable of the Sower and kind of translates it into our human world as kind of like a self-help, society help, planet help, designed to shape the futures we want to live. I'm actually really interested in this because I think it'll actually have an interesting impact on me as I go into librarian school here in about 6 weeks, and I am so stinking excited. But I think it'll be really helpful for me to kind of think through like how can I as a person impact and change the world around me and also myself. So I'm excited to see kind of what I can pull from this. I have read a little bit of it like when I was deciding to buy it in half price books. I read a little bit of it and definitely am like, oh, this is a little bit woo-woo, so I'm really gonna have to like sit down and like really work my way through it slowly and kind of probably write out and journal and think about what I'm taking from it and my own perspectives. But I'm excited to be challenged in that way. Reading nonfiction is something that I'm trying to do more of, especially as I'm about to go back to get a master's degree, and I haven't been in school in a very long time. So I have not written a paper or read an article or read like nonfiction with the purpose of like taking themes and coming to conclusions from it. So I think this will be a great way to kind of get back into that. And then the last two that I'm gonna read, cookbooks. So I actually got both of these cookbooks for a Juneteenth thing that I was planning on doing that I actually ended up not doing, but I was like, you know what, I can still read the cookbooks and use them. So I got these two cookbooks and I plan on hopefully cooking a few recipes from them throughout the month. This first one is a cookbook for Juneteenth and Black celebrations. And then the second is American Soul, the Black history of food in the United States. And there's just some really great history in these as well. I've already flipped through both of them and kind of have a few recipes that I'm excited to read, but it was also just like so nostalgic, and it really warmed my heart to see pictures of food that I grew up eating and like learn the history behind them. Both my parents are from New Orleans. A lot of my family, most of my family still lives in New Orleans. And so we, you know, would go there all the time. And I just have these really great memories of like having red beans and rice and gumbo and po' boys from a gas station, like little deli. And like, there's just these really beautiful memories around food and being Black. That I'm excited to explore both the history of more and bring more of those foods into the foods that I make for myself in my everyday life. So that, my friends, are all the books that I am going to hopefully read, consume in some fashion this month in July. I am really excited to celebrate my Blackness and just the Black community as we also celebrate America, because America would not exist without Black people. America would not exist without diversity of thought and race and religion and culture and all the ways that diversity can exist. So I'm excited to celebrate that this month. I will see you hopefully soon in a video. I actually am planning some really fun videos this month. I've got quite a bit of PTO that I'm taking, so I'm gonna have a lot of time to read. So I cannot wait to do some reading challenges, reading vlogs, talk about libraries, just have a whole lot of stinking fun with books this summer. So I will see you in the next one, and I hope you have a very happy July. Bye!
Got me up on a late night. You steady playing on my mind.